Hi students, good day to all. Welcome to exercise accountancy. In this video, let's learn about the cost sheet third problem. In previous two problems, in the first one, we know about the overheads. So it is only overheads. You see in the cost sheet, only overheads, different kinds of overhead. That is factory overheads, selling and distribution overheads, and then administrative overheads. Okay, so in the second video we learn the cost per unit value, how to calculate the cost per unit value. So cost per unit means that is the single unit, how much expenses spent for single unit production. So that is cost per unit. So it is found in different stages. At the time of find prime cost, at the time of calculate the factory cost, at the time of calculate the cost of production and cost of sales. Okay, at each stage we find the cost per unit value. In this cost sheet it is different one. So it is the cost sheet with inventories. So what is the meaning of inventories? I explained in the specimen video. Inventories means that is stock, balance stock. The stock may be raw material or the semi-finished goods or finished goods. It is divided into three categories. So each category is adjusted in the cost sheet at different places. So at what places it have to be adjusted, that we learn here. Let's see the problem. From the cost records given below, prepare cost sheet. So details given to prepare the cost sheet. Stock of raw material as on 1/12/2010. So it is December 1st date, the stock of raw material is, that is 75,000. We are preparing this cost sheet for the end of the December month only. It is prepared for the month, not for the year. So it is given the first date of month, December month stock. So next one, stock of raw material on 31st/12/2010. So this is the month end date. So that is considered as closing stock of raw material. And this is direct wages. So each expenses we have to classify into different heads. So different overheads. So what are the expenses comes under the different overheads. Okay. So first one, direct wages, it should be mentioned in the cost sheet before finding prime cost. Then indirect wages, it comes under the factory overheads. And sales have to be mentioned in the cost sheet at last. Okay. After finding all the expenses, total expenses, we have to find the profit. That time we are using sales value. And next one, work in progress on 1/12/2010. So this is also the stock. It is semi-finished goods. So semi-finished goods opening stock. So the opening stock have to be add and closing stock to be have to be deduct. Okay. So at what places it should be mentioned? The work in progress, otherwise semi-finished. So after finding the factory cost, that means gross factory cost, adding all the expenses under the factory overhead, then we have to adjust the opening and closing of the semi-finished goods. And next, purchases of raw material. So it is raw material purchases. So it have to be added with the opening stock, as already said. And next one, factory rent, rate, power. So factory rent, rate, power, these all expenses are related to the factory overhead. So it should be comes under the factory overheads. Depreciation of plant and machinery. So what is the meaning of depreciation? So it is the machine value is reducing year by year. Okay. At last, after certain period of time, it will comes to the value, zero value. So it is depreciation. Every year we are calculating a certain amount as depreciation for the machines, plant and machinery. So it is, the machines are used in the factory, so it is comes under this expenses is comes under the factory overhead. Okay, next, expenses on purchases. So this is purchases of raw material. So the expenses which occur for the purchases of raw material. So we have to add this with the purchases of raw material. This expenses on purchases is add with the purchases of raw material. Okay. Then carriage outwards. So carriage outwards means the carriage is inwards and outwards. There is two terms. Inwards means this is the things, the raw material may be taken from outside to the company. Okay. Likewise, carriage outwards means the finished product. Outward means when the finished product is going out of the company for sales. So that is carriage outward is used. Next, advertising. So advertising, it is for product development, for product better sales, it is used in the public. So that is also comes under the selling and distribution. Next, office rent and taxes. So that is, they are mentioning it is office rent and taxes. So rent is paid by the office and also the tax is paid by the office. So this comes under the office or administrative overhead. Next, travelers' wages and commission. So travelers' wages means that is for product sales, the salesman travel expenses are called travelers' wages and commission, and salesman's commissions are also included. So this comes under the selling and distribution. Next, stock of finished goods on 1/12/2010 and stock of finished goods on 31/12/2010. So this is opening stock and this is closing stock. This is opening and closing stock of the finished product. So this comes under the after cost of production. We have to adjust this, and finally we have to find the cost of production of goods sold before finding the cost of sales. Okay. So when we are classifying these expenses like this, it is very easy to prepare cost sheet. Okay. So now we are preparing cost sheet. So first the cost sheet is started with the raw material. So raw material values are the opening and closings are given. So it have to be adjusted. So first one, opening stock of raw material. So that is 75,000. Then we have to add the purchases of raw material. Purchases of raw material is here, that is 66,000. So the opening stock of raw material is, that is closing stock of previous year, it is taken to this year as opening stock. Okay. Then we are adding the purchases of raw material. Then the expenses on purchases, the expenses made on purchases of raw material also add with the opening stock. Expenses on purchases of raw material, that is 2,500. So now we have to add this. $1,43,500. Then the closing stock have to be deduct from the total. Closing stock of raw material. So the amount of closing stock is 91,500. So closing stock means that is the raw material which is not used for the production process at the current month. So this is taken to next month. Okay. So it is 52,000 is the raw material consumption value. raw material consumed. Okay. Then we have to find the prime cost by adding direct expenses and direct wages. So in this sum, direct wages only given. So direct wages have to be added. The amount of direct wages is 52,500. If we add this 500, 1 lakh 4,500, this is prime cost. This is called prime cost. Next we have to add the factory overhead expenses. So we write the title factory overhead expenses. This prime cost have to be mentioned here because we have to add the factory expenses one by one. Okay. So what are the factory expenses we are mentioning here? This is indirect wages. Indirect wages. The amount is 2,750. Then factory rent, rate and power. Factory rent, rate and power. So this is 15,000. So it is very easy to prepare once we are classifying the expenses different heads. Okay. Then depreciation of plant and machinery. Plant and machinery 3,500. Okay. Next, current. Okay, that's all. We had to add these three factory expenses: 0, 5, 12, 2, 1 balance, 3, 8, 11, 2. So 21,250 is the total factory overhead expenses. This is the total of the three. Okay, these are the factory overhead expenses. We have to add these three and find the total factory overhead expenses. Then we have to add the prime cost and the total factory overhead expenses and find the factory cost. So if we add this 0, 5, 7, 5, 2, 1,25,750 is the gross factory cost. So usually we are mentioning only factory cost. The total of prime cost and factory overhead expenses is called factory cost. Here why we are mentioning gross factory cost means it is we have to adjust the work in progress, opening and closing stock after that. And finally we find the factory cost. So we are mentioning here this is gross factory cost. Next we have to add the opening stock of work in progress. So that is 28,000. Zero, 5, 7, 3, 5, 1,53,750. Okay, total. Next we have to deduct the closing stock of work in progress. The closing stock of work in progress value is 35,000. Okay, got it? We have to deduct this 0, 5, 7, 13 minus 5, 8, 4 minus 3 1, 1,18,750 is the factory cost. Okay, got it. Next we have to add the office or administrative overhead. Administrative overhead expenses. So this is the heading. Here under we are writing the all office and administrative expenses. So from the top, search it. In these all expenses, only office rent and taxes are comes under the office overhead. Office rent and taxes. So the amount is 2,500. So there is no other office expenses. So we have to add this 0, 5, 12, 1, 10, 11, 1,21,250 is cost of production. Okay. So then usually then we have to add the selling and distribution overhead expenses. But in the problem they are giving the stock of finished goods adjustment, opening and closing stock. So we have to adjust these two. Okay. Add opening stock of finished goods. That is 54,000. If we add this 1,21,250 with 54,000, this is 250, 4 plus 1 5, 5 plus 2 7, 1,75,250. Then we have to deduct the closing stock of finished goods. The amount of closing stock of finished goods is 31,000. 250, 4, 4, 1,44,250 is cost of production of goods sold. Okay, got it. Next we have to add the selling and distribution overhead. So what are the selling and distribution overhead expenses? Carriage outwards, advertising, travelers' wages and commission. There are 3 expenses. So first one, carriage outwards. So that is 2,500. Next, advertising. Okay, advertising is 3,500. And next one, travelers' wages and commission, 6,500. Travelers. This is the total of the selling and distribution expenses. The 12,500 is total of selling and distribution expenses. Next we have to add the cost of production of goods sold and the selling and distribution expenses. That is 1,56,750 is the cost of sales. Okay. Then we have to find the profit. The sales detail is given in the problem. First we have to write the sales amount, that is 2,11,000 is sales amount. 2,11,000. Then we have to find the profit by deduct the cost of sales from sales. Okay. Okay, that is 54,250 is the answer. That is the profit. Okay, so this is the cost sheet format with the inventories. So we clearly know the where we have to adjust the open and closing stock of raw material, opening and closing stock of work in progress, and opening and closing stock of finished goods. Okay, got it. So the opening and closing stock of raw material have to be adjusted with the starting when we are finding the raw material consumption. So purchases of raw material have to be added with the opening stock, and then if any purchases related expenses, they have also add with them, and then we have to less the closing stock of raw material. So finally we are getting the raw material consumption for the particular month. Next, opening stock of work in progress and closing stock of work in progress. So it have to be add after totaling the factory expenses. Okay, and the factory expenses have to be added with the prime cost, that total called gross factory cost. Then we have to adjust the work in progress, opening and closing, and finally we have to adjust again the finished product opening and closing. It is adjusted before selling and distribution expenses. That means after finding the cost of production, we have to add the opening of finished goods and less the closing of finished good, and then we have to add selling and distribution. Finally we are getting cost of sales, and we have to write the sales value, and finally we find the profit. So this is the cost sheet with inventories. Thank you students. Recommend my videos to your friends. Thank you.